Well, the month of July has been declared the hottest on record. And it's not just the air temperature, oceans are heating up too. In Thailand, thousands of dead fish washed ashore last month. Scientists say climate change is a contributing factor. Barnaby reports from Samut Prakan.
It's usually a picture-perfect paradise, but thousands of dead fish washed up along this beach in Thailand's southern Chumphon province in June. Local authorities blame it on a toxic algae bloom that occurs naturally, but scientists say climate change is making it worse.
If you tip the climate system over towards a new state where it's warmer, where the patterns of climate have shifted significantly, then suddenly these natural variations become problematic.
Problematic, especially for communities that rely on fishing for livelihood.
It means they lost their income, and not just small scale, but also bigger, like industrial as well, because these fish also the same fish that are caught. Some of these are juvenile fish, so it means that they cannot reproduce for another school of fish.
Scientists say oceans soak up more than 90% of the Earth's excess heat. It's good news, but it comes at a cost. Coral reefs are bleaching, storms are at record strengths, and sea levels are rising. The Gulf of Thailand, for instance, has swollen and washed over coastal communities. So those poles behind me are remnants of a community. There used to be a health center, a school, houses around here. But people have had to move out because this area is perpetually flooded. A heat wave swept Thailand in March and April, and soaring temperatures continue to grip other parts of the world. As people bake in the heat, sea animals are also having to endure boiling waters. In Florida last week, sea surface temperature rose beyond 38 degrees Celsius.
If it gets warmer in the atmosphere, that warmth will go into the ocean. Equally, if there's some warm water in the ocean, it feeds that, it radiates that heat back into the atmosphere. So the two are tightly coupled. And so we see records being broken for one, it's going to be broken for the other.
July is already the hottest month on record, and 2023 is on track to becoming the warmest year. The El Niño weather event, which cycles back naturally every few years, is worsening the heat. Nothing we can do about El Niño, but scientists say climate change is something humans can slow down. Barnaby, Al Jazeera, Samut Prakan, Thailand.
Robert Blasiak is a researcher at Stockholm Resilience Centre and specialises in sustainable management of ocean resources. He joins us now from Stockholm. Good to have you with us. So, is the consensus that further coral bleaching is now inevitable if further global warming beyond the 1.1 degrees Celsius seems to be inevitable too?
Well, we talk a lot about climate change, and whenever we do, we start to think, well, this is something unprecedented. This is something new. You hear about records being broken. You hear about unprecedented heat waves. Right now, what we're experiencing really, truly is something no one has seen, no one has experienced. Right now, 44% of the ocean is under heat wave conditions. We talk about heat waves on land, but in the ocean, there are also heat waves, and these are periods of prolonged temperature above natural variation levels. So 44% of the ocean today is experiencing a heat wave. It's not just Thailand, it's also Florida, it's also around Japan, the entire Mediterranean, the eastern seaboard of the US. The ocean is boiling right now. When we think about coral reefs in particular, the IPCC, which is the UN's body for climate science and policy development, they've estimated that 70 to 90% of corals will disappear under a 1.5 degree warming scenario. As you said, we've already experienced 1.1 degrees of warming. So this is literally just around the corner for us. It's something we need to have on our minds day to day. And I would mention that while the main stressor on corals, it's global. It's rising temperature due to climate change. But there are also local stressors. So I think it can also be disempowering to think, well, climate change, what can I do? What can my community do? Well, almost 1 billion people live in the proximity of coral reefs, and there's a lot they can be doing now. They can immediately try to do whatever they can to cut emissions, but also a lot of other things are stressing corals and causing them to be more vulnerable to high temperatures. So pollution into waters, overfishing, removing all the herbivorous fish that are eating all the algae that also competes with the corals. These are all things that can be done at a local level using local knowledge in local communities with local management.
All right, and if that is not the case, what would the loss of more coral reef mean for marine diversity? I understand there's a good chunk of marine life that depends on coral reefs, right?
That's right. So it's estimated that there are about 2 million species in the ocean, and about 25% of those are associated with coral reefs. They either live in them or they have part of their life cycle in the coral reef. So it's about a quarter of the biodiversity in the ocean is estimated to be associated with coral reefs. If we lose coral reefs, we're losing one of the pillars of ocean biodiversity, of marine ecosystems. And it's not just pretty postcards. It's not just tourism. It's a long list of benefits that we get from having healthy coral reefs along our coastlines. It has defenses against waves and storm surges. It also provides livelihoods in the form of healthy marine populations of fish and other species. It's also important for spiritual and aesthetic values and a lot of other things as well. And tourism, yes, that too. But there's a long list of reasons why we should be concerned about losing coral reefs and doing everything we can to ensure that this worst case scenario does not come to be.
All right, we'll leave it there. Robert Laziak.